talked about Krodha, the anger. So today we are going to talk about greed, the Lobha. Okay. So as I was saying last week, these are the enemies on the path of spirituality. Because sometimes our mind says, hey, in the world everybody has these and they flourish with these, right? A greedy person makes more money. But we are looking at it from a different angle because goal is spirituality, liberation, freedom, peace, whatever you want to call. So if that is the goal, then this is an enemy. Okay. So in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna in 16th chapter, he put all these first three together in one of the verse. This is a verse number 21. He says, Trividam narkasya dwaram nashnam atmana kamaha krodha tatha lobhas tasmat etat trayam tyajet. So desires, anger and greed are the three gates to hell, he says. Narkasya idam dwaram. Dwar means the gate, the doorway. So Kam, Krodh and Lobh are the three gates of hell. What happens? Once you enter into the gate of hell, leading to the downfall of the individual. So instead of going up, we go down. So that's why he says, therefore, tasmat etat trayam tyajet. You must give up these three. Give up. So triple gates to hell. Due to ignorance, which is called avidya, and inadequate philosophical insight, the minds of most of the people keep on increasing the desires, innumerable desires. And these desires, they keep on putting constant pressure on our willpower. See, willpower, the Shakti which we have, which is supposed to uplift us, with the pressure of desires, it becomes weak. And it causes that all devouring, gluttonous demon of greed. So from desires, greed keeps on. And demon of greed, which will thrive in the human personality. I'm sure most of you, when you were little, if your parents were talking Hindi, they said these three small words to us. Lalach, buri, bala. Lalach means greed, buri means bad, and bala means a demon. It's a demon. So don't be lalchi. Greed and cravings are, figuratively speaking, an insult to all that is divine. So that means the divinity in us gets covered by this. And that's why some saints call this a disease. They say a person who's suffering from the disease of greed defiles divinity, drives divine grace away from his heart. This is well illustrated in some of the stories, which when we were little, we heard from our parents, grandparents. There is a popular story of Suti Buddha. There was a devotee. He observed or worshipped Lord Buddha. He had the altar where he had several Buddhas in there. But his favorite was one of those Buddhas, because there are several forms of Buddhas. He will burn incense in front of all the Buddhas, and he saw that fragrance is going to all the Buddhas, not just his favorite Buddha. So what did he do? He just put a little cover over his favorite Buddha and started burning the incense there. After a few months, what happened? His Buddha was completely covered with the soot, became so blackened. That is a selfishness. That is greed. So the spirit within you becomes sooty with greed. That's why they say the craving does not age, it does not decay, but we ourselves continue to age and decay. So, in other words, a human being ages, this personality ages, but craving somehow becomes more and more as we age. That's why this greed is called a wolf also. Wolf. And there's an interrelationship of desire, anger, and greed. That's why Lord Krishna called this, in this verse, all three of them together. In chapter 2 of Bhagavad Gita, we learned how Lord Krishna is interrelating these. He says by constantly dwelling upon objects, one develops attachment to them. From attachment arises desire. From desire, if the desires are not fulfilled, anger. From anger arises delusion. From delusion, loss of memory. From loss of memory, you lose the power of reasoning. And from loss of reasoning, the person destroys itself. Destruction comes. So all these verses, what are they suggesting? That this is a chain of degradation, and which is all too common. We can see that. And this all starts from a simple thought about an object. And we should remember, object doesn't mean the physical objects only. It could be the living creatures. It could be the inanimate objects. Any place where we think that we can get happiness. So at first you merely take a fleeting fancy to the object. Then day after day you reinforce that fancy by thinking about the object again and again. And soon what happens, your mind develops a psychological leaning or inner attachment to that object or the person or the position or the place. And that's how your reasoning begins to be affected. And you feel that you cannot live without that object. When the anger comes, there is an anger in this particular context. It has a special interpretation. It means agitation in the mind. That's anger. Because when there's a desire erupts, two things may happen. You'll have fulfillment of the desire or a frustration of the desire. In both cases, there's an agitation. Because when there's a fulfillment of a desire, agitation takes the form of elation. Again, the mind is not calm. There's an elation. But a person becomes elated because anything that is unreal, because it's a deluded understanding that objects are the source of happiness. Your mind is not settled. Your mind is not calm. It creates a reaction. So that's why I said the desire, even fulfilled desire, causes agitation. That's why people, when they become suddenly prosperous and successful, They don't know how to handle it. Immediately, they must have a drinking party. They cannot handle it. In broad terms, that elated agitation is also a form of growth. That's what we saw last week. And if a desire is fulfilled, it does not die away. It usually leads to greed or lobha. Now think about it. Why should a person become greedy if his desire is fulfilled? Because whenever a desire is fulfilled, the mind begins to use simple mathematics. Mind says, if I received an ounce of happiness from this object today, I will have more and more happiness from it the longer I cling to it. If this one object has yielded 1 ounce of happiness, then 100 objects will yield 100 ounces of happiness. So mind starts to think like that. If I have succeeded in acquiring one type of pleasure, why shouldn't I succeed in acquiring many types of pleasures? So mind gets deluded. So that's not a calm mind. Again, it's an agitated mind. Mind runs after the objects. And this kind of a mind fails to realize that happiness is not quantitative. You cannot gather an ounce of happiness here and an ounce there and accumulate a storehouse of happiness. It doesn't work that way. Happiness is qualitative. So if desire is fulfilled, there can develop two forms of agitation. The initial elation of getting what you wanted and all-consuming greed because you want more and more of the same. That's greed. If the desire is unfulfilled, the agitation of anger develops. And you immediately want to blame somebody else or something else which kept you away from you having what you wanted to have. So you can see that desire, so anger also, and the greed also, they are all connected to this. And as your frustrated desires become suppressed, because if they keep on growing, you cannot fulfill. Some you'll have to suppress. The agitation of craving or trishna, which is called, invades the mind. Trishna, craving. So that's how Kam, Krodha, Lobha are intimately related. And the mind which is invaded by these demonic qualities becomes afflicted with delusion and loss of pure reason. Because there's no calmness in the mind, you really cannot see it clearly. And that's why Lord Krishna said it becomes the cause of your destruction, which yields nothing but misery and despair. This truth is illustrated in the story from Middle East. This merchant who was blinded by greed, he had a camel rental business. One day, one person comes to him. That person had some mystical powers. He said, I need 30 camels to take these jewels, gold and other jewels and the silver I have found. I need to take it somewhere else. I need to rent 30 camels from you. This merchant got astonished. 30 camels? Where did you find that kind of a treasure? This merchant said, this person said, who wanted to rent the camels, that I have a box. In this box, there is an ointment. And if you put this ointment in one of your eye, you'll be able to see where the hidden treasure is. If you really want it, I can share it with you. I'll give you this ointment. But make sure you put it only in one eye. Because if you put it in both the eyes, you will become blind. But this merchant was so greedy. What did he do? He put it in both the eyes. Both the eyes. And he became blind. So sure, this story presents an exaggerated but truth description of greed. Just like the merchant, we all want to have objects of enjoyment. If this natural need is kept under control, sure, we need the objects, we need food to eat, we need clothes to wear. But we need to keep it under control by a proper understanding of life and goals of life. Then there won't be any problem. Unfortunately, the human mind tends to be forever discontented with whatever it has in the world, and greedily we desire more and more and more. The idea that you will become more comfortable, more relaxed, more fulfilled by acquiring more and more possessions, fame, or power is based upon illusion. No one finds peace and contentment by having more of anything except philosophical understanding. That is called a Adhyatma Vidya. Nothing can bring you true contentment except the philosophical understanding that an all-knowing God has provided for you all the important ingredients for your evolution. God has given us enough. In order to be truly prosperous, you must have a good internal disposition, a mind that can relax. That is a possession. An intellect that can reflect, and a heart that can turn to God. These are the three things we need. We can be greedy about these. I want to have my mind more relaxed. I want to have a clarity, more and more clarity in my intellect. And I want my heart to just move towards God. If that type of internal wealth is there, then you are truly prosperous. So in order to curb greed and promote true contentment, you have to understand philosophically that the purpose of human life is to attain enlightenment. Or you can call it God realization or freedom, liberation, whatever you want to call it, but this is the purpose. You can enjoy the objects of the world, but as the story of that blinded merchant suggests, you should not have both your eyes directed towards the worldly objects. One of your eyes should be kept towards God and the other towards the world. That is the balance. Okay? That's what that story tells us. Because we are in this world, we got to do our duties, but if we just run after the objects, we are not going to be content. Because we live in the world, you have a sense of detachment and a freedom should let you know that you are above the world. We got to learn how to swim in this sansara of world, not drown in it. So when we have both the eyes towards the world, we drown. So even though you live in the world, you possess a dimension to your personality that allows you to see beyond it. You got to look at the other shore also. Not to become totally immersed in the world is the great secret behind all the religion and spiritual philosophy. Everyone is led by a process that forces him to be in the world. Everyone is compelled to do certain duties. They take up certain projects because we all have different talents. So we have to achieve certain things in world. But if you lose sight of the inner self, keep on running into the outer sphere, then you definitely will fall. Then all the achievements we have, they only become things. You end up feeling humiliated like the blind man. But on the other hand, if you discover that transcendental dimension within yourself, you will definitely perform your duties with the purity of mind. You will not embark upon a project because of uncultured desires, egoism, and pride. The work you do, no matter what work you are supposed to do, should bring a harmony inside, a peace inside and outside. Only then it will be auspicious for the humanity. Only then your quality of work will be spiritual and it will carry a heavenly fragrance. In addition, you will develop an awareness that you are not the doer. You are ever free. Even if there is a greatest calamity befall upon you, it will not shake you if you have that kind of a balance. Because a greedy person is not aware of his own resources. He is only aware what others have. That is one of the things in a greedy person, constantly paying attention to what others have. And always thinking that others are better off than he is. It's almost like a dog who thinks that other dog has more than I do. When we were little, there were a lot of stories like that. A dog thought that the dog in the pond, because he was seeing his own reflection, has a better bone than I do. And he started barking and his bone fell down. And this is what happens to greedy person also. That's why a millionaire is very happy until he meets a billionaire. We have heard about that. Because there always you will find people who surpass you in some way or the other in wealth, health, looks, power, fame. But greedy person's heart is never content, always looking at somebody else. So what does yoga teach us? Yoga teaches the importance of not comparing yourself with others. That's why yoga brings our attention back to the essence of us, who we are, which is the same. At the soul level, we are all same. There's no bigger soul and a smaller soul, cleaner soul and a dirtier soul. No, it's all same. So yoga teaches the importance of not comparing yourself with others. Everyone has been given the best situations for his or her advancement, and everybody is unique. What you have been given, no one else possesses in exactly the same way. That's why no two bodies are the same. And let alone the minds. We have got what is best for us, and we got to use that. In Raj Yoga, there are two terms which describe this greed and how to control it actually. Two terms, asatya and aparigraha. These are two of the five great yams. Yams are the ethical restraints. A stay implies freedom from desiring, misappropriating, or stealing the possessions of others. That's a stay. And aparigraha is non-covetousness, non-holding. So asteya and aparigraha are closely related sister virtues, which are both directed towards the removal of greed. So if we want to face against this enemy greed, we need to cultivate these two restraints, asteya and aparigraha. Why do we want to steal? Where is that urge come from? The urge to steal results from a blend of greed, selfishness, lack of control over our senses, and afflicted with the illusion that happiness comes from objects. We think, if I have that, somebody else has it, if I take it, I'll be happier. So this is the illusion. A thief steals because he feels that he cannot be happy without the object, because he's craving for that object. His mind lacks the patience to earn them in a righteous way. He says it's easier to just grab it from somebody else because greed is to that level. The greedy mind does not see the darker implications of that action. It does not see who will get hurt or what others will feel if they have lost things which they loved or worked hard for. So, due to this intense selfishness, the mind behaves like a depraved vulture and promotes indulgence in falsehood. So, if a person is dominated by a highly intense and perverted form of greed, he chooses the path of stealing, which is a satya. Satya means stealing. Asatya is the restraint, which as a yoga students we need to have. Okay. On the other hand, if the greed is more moderate, so if it is intense, you are a thief. If this greed is moderate, you tend towards parigraha. You keep on holding. So that's why I said these are sister. So if they have become the restraint, they are the sister virtues. If you have not restrained them, opposite of that is a sister demons in us. So moderate level, parigraha, and intense level, satya. So that's how Rishi Patanjali described. That's why that is like a very first step on the ladder of yoga. Sure, we want to attain samadhi. Sure, we want to attain liberation. But first we have to climb on the first step and the second step, then the third step. So this is on the first step. Part of the first step actually. In first step, there are five. Ahimsa, Satya, Asatya, Brahmacharya, Aparigraha. So these five are, you can say, sub-steps of the first step. So that you can see that how powerful this greed is. That's why it was called a bala by our parents. That's why the rishis, they call it a gateway to hell. Or it's called a wolf. I mean, these are the names they gave. Or a blindness. Whatever really makes sense to us, we got to work on it. So adopting methods that are normally considered righteous, a person, a yogi, continues to work on this. This kind of a person who has some control, these ethical controls, he simply is not obsessed with the idea that if I have more and more, I'll be happier. Because normally that's the mantra these days. The more I have, the more I'll be happy. So a yoga student, a person who really sees this clearly, this is not his or her mantra. Because otherwise what happens? This greed, instead of having two pairs of shoes, the greedy will have, I don't know how many, or two sweaters, 50 sweaters. Whatever thing a person thinks and can give me happiness, we just keep on having more and more. We are afraid to lose our possessions. That's what happened then. Once we possess, we think it's ours. I bought it with my hard-earned money. A person is afraid to lose. A person becomes tied to the place, tied to the objects. You are a constant caretaker of things that you are not going to use. Things which simply become a source of endless headache for us. Furthermore, there's a great illusion involved in the idea that by acquiring more and more possessions, you will become secure and comfortable. Not just happy alone, security also. It is like chasing a mirage in order to quench your thirst. So if you were to study your life and the lives of people around you, you would realize, you have to just introspect a little. You will realize the more does not necessarily mean happier. This, we got to think about it, introspect upon it. From a social point of view, a person who develops greed disturbs the harmony and economic balance of society. Greedy person is depriving somebody else of their basic necessities. Hoarding negates the fact that the same life flows in all. So instead of moving towards this truth that we are all same, hoarding says, no, I need more than you do. It is a form of violence, yogis say. You are hurting others by developing exaggerated greed, causing disharmony and disbalance in society. In a more elevated society, there will be an entirely different kind of greed. Greed for the attainment of spiritual values. A person would crave more and more sincerity, more mental peace, more goodness, more gentleness, more control of mind. So if we want to have more of these. If we practice these ideal, there would be peace in ourselves, person who's practicing it. And then this peace will radiate. It will promote happiness and peace in the environment around him. So this kind of a person is not only keeping, a person who hoards wealth will keep it. And there's a darkness around it. A person who hoards, cultivates this kind of a wealth will share it. It will promote happiness around. When you are greedy, as I said earlier, your will becomes weak. Will. And as a result of this weakness, you may not be able to get the very object that you greedily desire. or if you do get them, they will become a source of pain. Okay, so will, it's called a Ichha Shakti also in Sanskrit. You will not really be happy if you get an object if you are greedy, because of greed. And on the other hand, if you do not have greed, then all the objects you need will come to you. If you're not greedy, they'll come to you automatically. You don't even know where it's coming from. A person who is free from greed is able to command matter, all material needs, because he becomes the master of the matter and uses matter according to his need, not according to his greed. But when the mind is weakened by greed, a person allows himself to be used by matter. So choice is ours. Do we want to use matter by being non-greedy, or we want to become greedy and be used by the matter? So if you are the master of your possessions, you are prosperous. If the possessions are possessing you, then you are not prosperous. This is the formula. Nature will give you whatever you need. That is the law. Nature will give you whatever you deserve. In a mysterious way, what you need will come to you and you'll be able to use your prosperity well. But on the other hand, if you draw wealth out of greed, that wealth will make you fearful. You will get attached to it. You'll always be afraid of losing it. You will want to assert that you are wealthy. You want others to know that you are wealthy. And that will make you conceited, arrogant, insensitive. So all those other flaws start to come if you are greedy. External and material prosperity is not healthy unless it is accompanied by internal prosperity. That's what I want you to understand. That's why that story of two eyes, one towards God and the other towards the world, is very important to remember. We got to cultivate divine qualities. If one is free of greed and truly established in non-stealing, aste, Rishi Patanjali says that he or she has discovered the secret of abundance. You will see that in Yoga Sutras. There is a sutra about that. That sutra says, Asatya pratisthayam sarvaratno upsthanam. When a person is established in non-stealing, it's like a firmly established. Physically also, mentally also, verbally also. That person acquires the power of attracting all jewels and pearls, ratan, all wealth to himself. It's a very powerful verse. We think by stealing we'll have it. But here the Rishi is telling us by non-stealing, firmly established, you'll have everything, whatever you need. All the wealth of the physical, psychological, spiritual world flows to you when you have a true spirit of renunciation. This kind of a person becomes blessed with the true contentment, peace, as well as harmony. Those are the real wealth. And similarly, if you stopped choosing to go after things beyond your need, what would happen? You remember two terms I said, aste and aparigraha. So if you are firmly established in aste, non-stealing, all the wealth runs to you. And if you are firmly established in aparigraha, non-hoarding, Rishi Patanjali says, aparigraha sthare janam kathanta sambodha. What does that mean? By attaining perfection in non-hoarding, non-accumulating, one acquires the knowledge of past births. We want to know what happened in the past birth. We want to know where did we come from. We want to know if I'm going through good time or bad time. Why? Rishi Patanjali says, firmly establish yourself in aparigraha. You will know it. It's all written inside you. You'll have a clarity. So if you want to root out the subtle seeds of greed from your unconscious or unburden your mind of parigraha, then that mind will reveal to you that you are a spirit, you are a soul, you are part of God. It will be your experience. You will know that you are just, this body is just a traveler. It's like you just have this right now and you're going to shed it off, and then in next you will have another one, another embodiment. So you'll have a clear memory of all the past lives. But under the pressure of attachment to possessions, strong identification with your body, you cannot remember these great facts. With this pressure, we don't even remember. What did we say to somebody, a person who's not talking to us? We forget. That special power of the mind to remember the past incarnation is veiled by your present attachment. The moment greed is eliminated and the mind relaxes, you begin to develop the awareness. And what is this awareness? I am a soul. And this world is not my final stay. I am in transit. As a personality, I exist in this world for only a short time. This is crystal clear to us then. So the practice of non-holding first brings that hidden insight into the nature of your spirit and the manner in which it moves from one embodiment to another through karma. So this clarity comes to us. You understand the realities to which you become attached. And all of this is just, you see that it's just a waves in the ocean. The whole karma will be clear to you. And with a further purity of mind, you understand that your innermost spirit is not individualized entity. Okay, that's also work we need to do. Okay, so that's why non-stealing and non-possessiveness, both the qualities, we need to cultivate to overpower this greed. So the real nature of your soul is the self, which is the universal self. It's only one. It's not that my soul and your soul. It's just one. When you realize intuitively, not just theoretically, intuitively, from the depth of your being, I am that. I am the absolute self. You attain liberation. And the process of reincarnation terminates. So now you can see that this greed, which we just laugh it off sometimes, or we think that no, I cannot even, everybody else is greedy, I'm going to be greedy too. How we are hindering our own progress, how we are creating obstacles on the path which we are on. So it's not a simple thing. No wonder Lord Krishna said it's a gateway to the downfall. It's a door which takes us sliding down. All these three, Kam, Krodha, and Lobha. Okay, so just remember that when we are doing the sadhana, this is the sadhana. Sadhana for a serious student. If you want to attain some vertical achievement in this lifetime. Okay, so I think I'll stop it over here, and then we'll have some question answers, and then a bhajan at the end. Okay.
Hershey, I have a question. Is
Sure.
the greed and ego related to each other?
We're gonna talk about ego next week.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Okay, so it goes like Kam, Krodha, Lobha, Madh.
Okay,
Madh is the ego.
okay.
They're
Thank,
all related, but we'll talk about it in detail next week. Okay,
thank you.
just one little area, otherwise it gets too muddy,
All right, okay.
right? So I just want you to understand how important this is, the greed also.
All right,
We should not take it lightly, or just saying that I'm not greedy.
okay. Yeah,
To
thank you.
go a little deeper into it, because these roots, they're almost like the roots of the crabgrass. Just keeps on spreading, keep on spreading. So we got to make sure that we take all the roots out. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
SG, I have a question.
Sure, Nana.
Somewhere you said there are 5 steps. I missed those steps. Can you please tell me?
Oh, five steps. I was talking about the 5 yams:
Okay.
ahimsa, satya,
Yeah.
asti,
Okay.
brahmacharya.
Okay. Yeah,
Out
I
of
know.
those five, two are related with greed. This
Okay.
aprigraha,
Aptigrah. Yeah.
yeah, right? Asti,
Asatya.
asti, and aprigraha. Because if a person is not greedy, will not steal.
Yeah.
Right? Greedy person will steal. And then, sure, a person says, I'm not going to steal. But hoarding is also a greed.
Hoarding. Yeah. Hoarding is good.
Hoarding is also a greed. And that is a parigraha. Parigraha means hoarding. Aparigraha means non-hoarding.
No.
Okay.
Okay.
So,
Yeah. Thank you.
anybody else, any question? Otherwise, I'll do the...
Hershey, I have a question.
Okay, all right. Let me do the mantra. I think Manny wants to leave, so he got to
Okay.
finish the recording.
No, I
Om
don't have to leave. So
Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vishishyate. Om Shanti 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 Om. Thank you, Manny. So, Manny, if you got to leave, just make me the host, please. Okay. But if you are there, that's fine. Then there's no need to make me the host. Okay.